Hi everyone. Today I have a very special video. I always say that, but this one is like extra special. It's extra personal. I don't know if I have ever or will ever share something this personal on this channel. For a while I was debating whether or not to even post it, but at the end of the day, I think it's a cool thing that I want to share with the world. And I think some of you might be interested or you might benefit from it because, well, it is related to English speakers, native English speakers. But also some of you guys like more personal stuff because it's more interesting, it's more engaging, and you actually learn more that way. So I'm sharing the video that my mom made for me before she died. She made it in 3 parts. When she died, I was 14. And in this video, she's talking to me and saying that I'm 13 at the time. So this was about a year before she died, or less than a year before she died. She made a video for me and my brother as well. He has his own video in case she were to die because she knew that she had cancer at the time. And there was the possibility. I mean, there's always the possibility that we could die tomorrow, but my mom was facing something pretty serious, and so she thought it would be a good idea to make a video talking to me and my brother so that we could have that and watch that forever. And I'm really glad she did. The problem is that her friend helped her record it, and whatever they used to record it was absolutely atrocious. It was horrible. So the audio quality is trash. It's really bad. So I don't want you to use this as a way to test your listening comprehension because even I don't understand what she said at certain points, and there's certain points where the video, it cuts and it goes really fast and nobody can understand. So don't use it to practice your listening. Just use it to practice English in general, or see how native speakers really talk, because I put subtitles. I went through the video and wrote the subtitles. I edited all the subtitles so you know that they are accurate. You can read along with the subtitles, all right? Don't feel like you need to be able to understand just off listening. You can read it, and that's what native speakers do when the quality is not very good anyways. But you can still see and hear generally what she's saying for the most part, even though it's not the best quality. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you might know that I have already talked about my family history, some of my childhood story, my parents, my mom, my dad. And you might know that I didn't have the best relationship with my mom, especially in the years leading up to her death. And so when I watch this video of her talking, there are moments where even today, I'm rolling my eyes like, she just didn't get certain things, and she did her best. I'm able to recognize that she did her best, and she absolutely loved me, even if her best wasn't up to my standards, because I believe that I am more conscious about certain things than my mom was. And like I've said in previous videos, my mom had a lot of emotional and mental issues. She carried a lot of trauma and things with her. Life was not easy for my mom. She struggled every day with her emotions and her situations that she put herself in, and just dealing with a lot of things. My mom had a lot of stress. She had a lot of anger. As I got older, was a difficult child because I am a very intellectual type, and I like to challenge her, and I like to question everything that she says and does. And I had an answer for everything, and I had a question for everything. And, that drove my mom crazy. And that was really hard for her. My mom was very much, because I said so. And I was like, that's not a good enough reason. But regardless, I know that she loved me, and I know that she did her best. You don't need to remind me of that in the comments because I'm already aware. I just ask that you please be respectful. So, if you're going to comment something about my mom, please say something nice or respectful about her or nothing at all, because it is my mom. Let's have some respect, even though I sometimes talk about issues that I had with her on this channel, but that doesn't mean that you can criticize her for that, okay? I can, you can't, all right? You got it? Okay. So I think this video is very interesting. It's very emotional, just to let you know. She tears up. She starts crying a few times, so just be prepared for that. But I think it's very interesting to see the way that my mom talks, because she talks very much like me. In this video, you might be able to see where I get my way of talking from. Now, I edit my videos a lot, but the way that I normally talk is with a lot of filler words, a lot of pauses and hesitation, like I'm thinking while I'm speaking, and I will start a sentence and then start saying something else and start saying, like I'm constantly speaking in these broken, fragmented sentences. I thought that I did this very badly, but then I watched the video of my mom and I'm like, oh, she's worse than me. Like, this is where I get it from. Me and my mom are not the best speakers. We have a lot of like good ideas, good thoughts, and, a lot of smart things going on up here, but it doesn't come out so easily. And both my mom and I were good at writing, but when we have to speak in the moment and get the thoughts out in the moment, it can be hard for us. So you might be able to see like a similar speech pattern comparing my mom to me. So, okay, enough talking. Thanks for listening to the introduction, and here's the video.
Have been wanting to create this video for you, and I wanted to create one for your brother, for you to have as a keepsake. Even though I've rehearsed this, even though I practiced what I'd like to say to you, I mean, there's lots of things that I say to you every day. This can be emotional for me, and sometimes, as humans, we get emotional, and if I get that way during the video, it's just because this is a kind of an awkward, funny thing for me too. I want you to have the opportunity to see me physically speaking to you, because, even though I believe that we're not just physical beings, we're also spiritual beings. I will always be spiritually in your life, I believe. Even if I wasn't here on earth, say something happened to me and I was not here, but I just want you to know that I feel like I want you to have this opportunity to be able to look at me and see me speaking to you in this way. I've been dealing with breast cancer, and it's been ups and downs, and, since my diagnosis, and I've been trying to keep you informed. It's hard because right now you're 13 years old, and when I was diagnosed, you were, even 2 years younger. And it's hard because I know your friends, your friendship, school, and all of the daily, your sports and everything is such an integral part of your life right now. And I know from having been 13, parents are not really the most important thing right now, and probably won't be for several more years. But this is my gift to you. This is as your mother. And I apologize if my eye looks a little funny, but Mom just had radiation and I'm trying to focus with one eye. I'm not going to put my pirate patch on because that would be a little silly. And I don't want to play dress up for Halloween. But basically, I know that there's been videos made for, parents have made videos for children if, they think something might happen to them, or they would just like to make a video just to have. And I've seen some of the formats of how they've been done. The way I would like to create this video for you is to give you a sense that there are many things that I would like to say, and there are many things that I would like to wish for you as you venture through life, that if for some reason something happens and I'm not able to say those words or do that, I don't think that I would cover everything that I would think of, every detail. I don't expect to do that, but I don't expect to be, my long-term goals are to be at major events in your life, major landmark events, such as joyous things that you're going to experience that you haven't even got to yet. Your graduation from high school, a prom, maybe going to a prom with a boy, haha. I know that it's not something that you think about, but, those are things that I think about as mom. Possibly a wedding. We don't know, you never know. I know you talk about different things and you have lots of ideas, but you're 13. So you might change your mind. A new job, going to college. Those are going to be major things that happen to you, but they're also going to happen to me. Because as your parent, I'm going to experience those on an emotional level. Since I gave birth to you and I've been a part of your life and in raising you and all of that. If for some reason I am not able to physically be at those events, those are my long-term goals and I have every intention of being, then I hope that this video can give you the opportunity to just hear what I wish for you without having to be right there in the moment. I'm not going to go through details and try to just be there. Because, life changes, and what I might wish for you now may not be what I wish for you, but in general, there are certain things that I know feel. I'm going to go back to your birth because this is where it all started. My relationship with you started when I discovered I had life, when I found out that I was pregnant with you. And I want to, even though I've talked to you and you've asked me questions on the bed and we've chatted about stuff, I really want to kind of go through that with you to lead you to the place where, the next segment of this video will be sort of just, going through the journey of your life. But I want to start back at your birth. 13 years ago from September, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. I knew, even though I was not a married person, I knew you just know growing up, you just know whether it be, I don't know if I was in middle school, high school, I don't know if it was when I was a child. I just knew I would always have children. I always wanted children. I chose a profession around children to be a teacher. And I have that passion to educate and be and help children in that capacity. And so that was always with me. And I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I went through so much as a child myself. I felt like I really just wanted to, it was my mission and goal to make sure that children had, in all fairness, the benefit of experiencing happiness and quality in their childhood as best as can. Now, when I found out that I had life inside me, I was overjoyed. I was just thrilled. It may have been a surprise at first, but I talked to you when you were in the womb. I even bought books because I knew my education that, this was going to be beneficial. I read to you. I ate well. I did everything that I possibly could to make sure that you had a good start to life. And I think that, and that was just such, it was a time of like anticipation. And I did have some nervous feelings. Naturally, I was going to be a mom, but I just always had this confidence that I was destined to be a mother, and you were somehow, I had this motherly instinct, or whatever you want to call it, that you were, first of all, I knew you were a girl before I had the scans. I don't know how, but I did. And I was correct in thinking that. But I also had this feeling that you were a strong individual. Don't ask me how. I just had this feeling that you were going to be a strong-willed, a strong girl. Maybe because of myself, maybe because I knew that I had some of those qualities, but I just had a feeling that you were going to be, and we were going to be okay. And, your dad, when he learned about the pregnancy and things, of course, I mentally don't think that, I'm not going to speak for him. I don't think he was quite ready at first, but I was 100% ready and willing. So, I didn't have all the answers. I didn't have all the results of how, my living arrangements, how things would pan out financially, what was going on. But I did have a job. I had a teaching job, and I was just, and my doctor wished me all the luck and had confidence in me. And so I just went on my way with all of that. As you developed inside me, and then, your birth, I knew I had a healthy pregnancy. It was a great pregnancy, and I felt good. And then it came to be that you were ready to be born, and you weren't going to wait. It was my first pregnancy, so it was a long, 24 hours. I had started my labor, and then they did have to break my water, and I went in, and so it was a long process, but it was well worth it. I had my college roommate Mary with me, and your dad popped in, and then of course Granny came in, and she wasn't invited, but she came anyway. I just had a good feeling about the whole thing, and I just knew that things were going to be great. You were born in the dark under a spotlight because I was just so exhausted from a whole day of just, I thought you were ready to come. They said you were, but it just took a while. So we're both stubborn. And so when you came finally under that spotlight, Dr. Ziegler handed you to me, and I just watching you, I just knew, oh, this is, I could feel your strength. I could feel your, just how strong and vibrant and healthy you were as a baby. And I knew, I didn't have any worries. You weren't weak. There was nothing wrong. You checked out great. And, so all of that was great. But from that moment, and I brought you home, and of course it wasn't easy. You had some stomach issues, and you were cocky, and I had to kind of like troubleshoot with the formulas. And I know you get upset with me and wonder why I didn't nurse you and things like that. And if I could have gone back, there were some changes I would have made. We are not perfect. I made that decision based on my work and being a single mom. It wasn't something that I would have made a couple of years later, but life happens that way. I was a formula fed baby. I felt that would be okay. So I did, move forward. And when you got past your colic and all that, I watched you develop into a little girl. And from the time you were a baby, all I could do is just stare at you. Of course, you were my first child, and I think that had to do with it. But I just found myself in awe. I had taken developmental psych classes. I had studied babies. I loved babies. I worked with children. I was a teacher. But your development in learning and growing, it just amazed me. And that was, if you ever experience that as a mom someday, even if you don't, you choose a different path and you don't have children, that is fine. But hopefully you feel some of that joy that I felt. And probably not all parents feel it, but I did. And I do think there are a lot that do. And it's just, your heart is bursting with how proud you are. And I watched you all I could say is that it was like you were a sponge. You looked at me with eyes that were knowing, all knowing. You were aware of your surroundings. I knew that this is a bright child who is just taking in her world left and right. And she's not going to stop until she gets all the information she needs. And the important thing is to keep doing that. We do that the rest of our lives, but I want you to know that I just found myself in awe of you. And, I, of course, did my nightly books with you, and I would read to you. And, you had your little Goodnight Moon book that I used to read to you. And, of course, Brown Bear, and all those beginner books. But I had Goodnight Moon, which the verse changed. And it was a book that wasn't really repetitive. But it did, but it didn't. And it was unbelievable how quickly you were able to just learn the words and the language that developed from you, and the methods in which you picked up the book on your own. And I knew I had worked with you, and I know that I had kept that going with you, and I felt very good about that. But it was all experimental. It was just so cool because I was experimenting as a mom. I had watched children's minds develop in classrooms, but I never, ever experienced how early it can start and how quickly it can happen if given the opportunity and the time to do it. And you just amazed me how quickly you picked up the language and how you just took to books. And I was just so pleased with it. And when you started to say words and you were so articulate at a very young age. So all of that just intrigued me. And I found myself just staring at you with your bottle between your lips at night, rocking you and then laying you down. And then I'd leave the room, and then, a commercial would come on television. I'd go in and I would just stare at you and watch you sleep. I'm sure there are lots of moms who do that, but I just really want you to know that that's where I was at. That's where I felt I was just so content in being such an important part of your life at that moment. And you were very loved. You're very loved. You had an aunt who just adored you. She didn't have her children yet. She wasn't in that mode, but she just, had gifts for you all the time. You could tell the way she spoke and the way she came over. She was just so proud of you and happy and to see you and listen to me about stories about you, things that you were doing and developing and growing. And she learned, I think, a lot from me before, and then that helped her later. I think she had her own children. But I take a lot of pride in that, and your dad is a different person. We didn't end up together, and that was a good thing, but that was, we just, things hadn't evolved that way. But I don't think, his love for you came in, it was a whole different, it was there and it was unconditional, and he felt it too in his way. And I could see that he did. But for me, it was just this whole other world of just immersed in everything you did, everything. growing, developing every. Now later on, as you know, you turned into a girl and you became school age, and we made decisions about where you would go to preschool, and we decided all of those things. And you were a sweet girl, and you were a good girl, and you listened, and I was blessed. I really didn't have I didn't have to make a lot of effort with you. You just were very, very good and fairly easy. But I have to say, and you were flexible, and people were just like, wow, she can do this and do that. And they were amazed by you. Your very first babysitter was amazed by the things you could do. And this isn't just mom speaking. This is really how I've observed you over the years as you've grown. Now, as you've developed and grown, I noticed that characteristics of you and things that have come out are human traits. I started to see other aspects of you as a young girl, and how you are taking the world in and how you responded to things. And I could see that you had a little perfectionism in you where you wanted things to be just right. You felt that was your comfort zone. You wanted things to be right. And you admit that today, that's how things are for you. And I see that you still have that quality about you. And we talked about how that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing, but mostly it's been a good thing for you. It's served you well in your endeavors, and it's made you a successful girl, and it's made you noticed by your teachers and recognized. And I think that it's been a good thing for you. Sometimes you were hard on yourself, gotta learn how to do that cartwheel, gotta learn how to do that hula hoop, gotta learn how to do that. And you were so cute trying to learn it. And of course, being your mom, and I had to share you for a couple of years with Nicole, who loves you so much. And I am so thankful for that family that I felt very pleased with myself that I was able to step outside the box. And I think maybe the teacher in me allowed that to happen. I knew how important it was for you to have those relationships. And when I knew that they were healthy and good, I stepped back and I allowed you to have them. If I didn't think they were, then it may have been a whole different story. Probably not one that I would have liked to have remembered or told. I'm so glad it worked out the way it did. We got very lucky. I don't think your dad knew at the time how good that family was to you and how it would pan out in the end. But I think that he probably realizes it now. It was a very good connection, very good thing. Like a teacher, I kept that communication going openly with her. We talked. She was younger than me, but we talked, and it didn't matter. It was woman to woman. I wanted so much for you that it really didn't matter to me how I got it. If it meant communicating with somebody who loved you like a mother and cared that much to spend an hour and a half on the telephone, I was willing to do it. It meant that much to me. So over the years, I watched you grow. And of course, when Darren and I got married, and you were such a cute little flower girl at my wedding and walked me down the aisle. And I was so proud to have you next to me. I mean, that's really ultimately what I wanted. That relationship with and that's something that, I just wanted to nurture and grow. And Darren was natural with you and had nieces and nephews, and he just thought you were adorable and just really just took to you very naturally. And for me, that felt good. That felt very good because there was no stiffness about it. It all flowed. And that was also important to me as a mom. So, over the years, I just really I just always had this confidence that you were so strong that you could handle things as they happened, and you could, a lot of times, you were part of like the adults around you because, even before you had your little brother on the scene, you kind of were, you just had this, I always knew you had this little like older intuition about you, like an old soul, like you had these thoughts and these, right now at your age now, I'm watching those kind of like transition. Like I'm starting to see you more for the actual age that you are, because that 13-year-old age is tricky. It's just a very complex, complicated age. It's a transitioning time. And, but like I said, as you developed and things, I just was so proud of you. And I want you to know okay, that with all my love and with all my dedication, with all of my, all of these things just were naturally poured from my heart. And instinctively, I was your mom and I wasn't going anywhere. Unfortunately, we still as humans, we bring things to table that we don't always intend to. And there were moments as your mom, and I'd like to address those moments without going into detail because I don't think it's necessary or relevant at this point. But I do want you to know that my innate kind of I don't want to say primitive, but my behaviors from as a result of things I grew up with and things I was exposed to as a child, and sort of the real anger. And I've talked to you about this before, the real struggles that I went through at your age now was the worst of it. But I went through a period of just resentment and anger. And even as a young child, anxiousness that was fair. It was unfair for a child my age to have gone through what I had to go through. Because I unfortunately grew up in an alcoholic home, and the dynamics of growing up in an alcoholic home are just, there's lots of books on the bookshelves about that. And I don't need to go into all of that, but I want you to know that there are roles that we play in those families. No family is perfect and we all have dysfunctional stuff that goes on. But as your mom, there were moments when you saw me in a place where I should not have been in front of you. I should not have exposed you or lashed out or put myself into this, all I can describe as childlike behavior, because really that's what it does. It just goes right back to my childhood, and it's behavior that's like primitive. It comes from me without control. And even though I was there as your mom, an adult, I still had these, you rose to it. You may have seen it. I may have lashed out, but then I retreated in absolute guilt, because I know it was wrong. I knew it was wrong. If we could go back and say our life was like a cookie dough and we could just go back, just pluck out the bad chips, the raisins or whatever. I don't like raisins in my cookies, but if I could go back and just take them out one by one and do so, have the rest of the dough, not anything left on. If that's possible, then we should do that. I would go back and do that. It's not possible. And unfortunately, these things happen and it does affect us. And I'm a fool. I know how it affects, because growing up in the home that I did and the behaviors I witnessed, and be exposed to, I had to then reflect back on those blocks later on and really look back on my father, on my mother, and think in terms of, all right, they did the best they could. Did I do that at 13? No. I didn't have the ability because I was still in that anger mode. Later on, I did. And it doesn't mean that I didn't go to counseling. I still try to figure out why maybe I sabotaged certain things in my life, or why maybe certain things didn't fall into place. Because I spent much of my 20s just I had you there, but I felt like life was just unfolding before me. And I really didn't have a sense of control. But having you in my life was like the grounding. You were the anchor in my life. Not in an unhealthy, not in a way that depended on it. It was a way that it grounded me and made me realize this is what your goal is. This is your aim to do. This is your focus right now. So it's your focus. Fortunately, there were times when I know that focus would just get cloudy, and I would just, you would see me have a temper tantrum or get angry in a bad way, or say things that were not this thing to say. And let them out. Go back and take them out. I hope someday I can just know that your heart, as you will be able to point here, but reflect on me as long as a human being, and what and put the pieces there and somehow understand. It's hard when we're close to patients. I'm close. We want to be able to be our parents. We want to be able to say that we understand. And even as adults, sometimes we have struggles, and because sometimes we feel cheated. And that's a whole other thing that I know I talked to you about. And I of this video, I could talk more about how as a girl, when I look back as an adult, I feel like I was cheated of my relationship with God. And I think it's important to have a relationship with their fathers, a healthy relationship. So I'm very grateful that I always talk about my grandpa, my mom's dad, because he was the only male role model in my life that brought good things to the table. And he was a stubborn guy, but he had a deep faith in God. He had values and morals, and beyond. I mean, he raised, I have a lot of admiration for him. And I always talk about his life because he went through struggles, and I just you just develop a respect for that. He worked hard. He was a hard worker. So there was nothing about him that would ever make me think that he didn't try hard enough or whatever. I think that he used all of the skills he had available to him, and he used them to his optimal best. And I have nothing but good to say about it. And even though I felt cheated by my father, I wrote my letter. I was in college. I went back, and on my time, when I felt ready, I arranged it with him, and I sat with him, and I let him know. Now, he's no longer alive, and I can no longer speak to him, but there's no need to. I have nothing. That was it for me. That was finished. That was business. I more feel sad for him. I feel bad that he was also cheated out of a relationship with his 2 daughters that he could have had later on. And he missed out, of course, on grandchildren, all that, But your grandmother's around. She's never left. And my relationship with my mom, I've always told you I love my mother dearly. My mother's always been there for me. She's a rock, but she's, her and I have had a lot of history of ups and downs and, all of that. And I think a lot of why my mom, being in that relationship for as long as she did, it doesn't make me hate her in any way. I love my mother. I mean, my mother, again, did what she did based on what she had available to her. Do I wish that she made some different choices? Yes. Do I feel cheated by her? Yes. Yes, I do. But I want you to know that even though I'm not perfect, and I've been, I've had my flaws as a mom, I want you to know that my intentions and my intelligence and my understanding of the world, I feel, is steps, maybe even more, above what my parents had. So I know that I was, even if I may not have always, I was very capable and very able, and mentally I was more on the scene, I think, with you, mother to child, than you can ever imagine. I hope you get the sense of that someday, or if you watch this video, or if you just know that about me, that I've always had the most unconditional relationship and love for you, and always will. And I have so much respect for you, and I'm very, very proud of you. And I so look forward to being a part of so many more events in life that are going to be so important to you and to me. But like I said, I'm not going anywhere, but the nature of this illness, I try to keep you posted on my doctor's appointments. I try to keep you updated. I just don't have all the answers. And there may come a day when I have to face a situation where, I have to make a decision that is the next phase of my life, which is, and I don't know when or if or what. We don't know. I mean, none of us know. But for right now, it's important for me to let you know that no matter where you are, what happens to you, and what, when you graduate, when you make all these big transitions in your life, I have so much confidence in you. You can't even imagine. I mean, I just know that everything that you do is going to be successful. And even if it's not, you will work it out, because you've been working things out since you were that little baby in the corner, picking up a book and reading the words, or remembering the words, and then just developing in your language, and just everything that you've done. I've watched you do, and I see how you are about it, and I just know that I've had confidence in you since you were in my womb, and I just want you to know that I've always had that feeling. And I've learned something over the past couple of years in my journey with cancer, and my journey in trying to really get in touch with my spiritual my soul, is that what you feel here is far more important than what's up here. I mean, sometimes our heads can mess with what we really feel here. And I've discovered that, and I've seen that. I'm seeing it a lot. And that's my take on things. And I'm not working right now. I got done with work, and you know what? In this time that I'm not working, I really, really hope to really, really solidify our relationship. And what better time than 13 years old, when you are just, this is, like I said, that awkward age. I remember, gosh, my 13-year-old, you know what I did. I was dealing with cancer, and I was a whole place, but I was struggling. My parents, I didn't know if they were together, separated, divorced, what was going to happen. And I've told you this before. My life was topsy-turvy. I went to 3 different schools in the 6th grade. I just didn't know. And I was lost. I was a kind of a lost child, but something I've learned as an adult that I never lost. I may have been lost in many ways, but I never really lost, is that I'm strong. I'm a strong person inside, and I'm determined. And I can't say that I've always been able to pride myself in that verbally throughout my life, but I can say that now. I say now, and you have that. You have that in you, and that is I feel like that it's going to take you far. I feel like it gets me to places where I need to be when times are down. Sometimes when, you just think all hope is lost, and I've reached that place. I told you that, we reached that place, and, but my biggest concerns are you and Logan, your brother's well-being, and your happiness, and our stability. And, we have issues with family dynamics right now. Right now, you're not getting along with Darren, and I know there's a whole issue there. But I have confidence that will work through. I know that you're going through a lot right now, and this is a funny age, but I'm home, and I'm able to I want to really connect with you. That's my goal, is to really, not be up in your face, but just be there for you, and to solidify our relationship. Because with what I'm going through, and you're my daughter, and I know you're going through it too. I know it's not something you like to talk about, and we've tried the counseling route. And I think you're pretty strong with or without counseling, but I think that it's important for me to just be there. I'm not going to call up someone to come to the house to talk with you when here I am right here. Let's talk. Let's sit down and talk. I'm here. I'm an open ear for you whenever. I may be recovering from radiation or on medication or not feeling my very best, but I'm going to try my darndest to be able to be an ear to you, even if I'm just laying there half listening. Please know that I'm listening. It's important. It's important to me just as much as it was important to me to communicate to you when you were in the womb, because I knew that would be beneficial to you later on. It's as important to me for me to read books to you at night, for me to help nurture your mind and you and just really facilitate all those things. All of those things I did as a mom to benefit you. Those were just as important as me laying on a couch listening to your stories about school and your friendship situations. I want to hear them. And, if I give advice, or if I, say things to you that, you might not want to hear, it's okay to let me know that too. Right now, I've been a little bit tough on you because I've been demanding a certain degree of respect, because respect needs to happen. It just needs to happen. I got you on your way into life, and I have done a fairly good job, I feel, as a mom, to get you to a good place at this point. You may not be completely thrilled everything, and emotionally, I know sometimes you feel a wreck, and, you feel like sometimes you can't stand Darren and you want me to make decisions but you know how I feel on that. You know what my take is on that. And I just want you to please hang in there. Please hang in. Please know that we love and support you. And I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I do know that the love comes from Dan as well. You just don't even see that. You don't see that. Everybody has, when somebody really loves someone, and when they don't. And I would know if that were the case. It's not the case at all. It's just that we all have different ways of presenting our love and sharing our love and my approach. I'm a different person. We're different people. We're all different people on this earth. And that's the biggest thing. And I just want you to know that as you go through life, please understand. And I'm just trying to teach you in a simplistic way, even though you're very smart. I know you can understand. I want to try to, in simple terms, explain to you that you are going to run into so many different people and personalities in life. And sometimes they bombard you and you just don't even know where they came from. And life doesn't seem worth living sometimes. And you're just like, what is this? But as long as you stay true to yourself and who you are, which I have complete confidence that you will be, you've always been that way, you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong. So just don't be quick to reject others. Don't be so quick to shoo people away, out of anger, out of frustration, and you will, and accidentally we make these mistakes, and we do. But I want you to just know that I've learned from my experience, and I'm not perfect. Believe me, I'm not, but I just want you to really get that message that you just have to know where you stand, but really be able to step outside and be able to look at where other people are coming from, seeing all different other perspectives and seeing where some might be coming from and trying to take in another point of view is a good, healthy thing to do. It's probably the best thing you can do when you're trying to develop relationships in life. It's going to help you. It's going to help you to cope. Unfortunately, a lot of these things I didn't learn until later. I mean, I didn't learn these things right off the bat. We all live in like our little bubble, and we think we've got things figured out, and we think we handle things the way we choose to handle them. But something new comes up, and then we have to deal with that. And it's like, oh, okay. So lifelong learners is really what it's about. My grandfather was a lifelong learner. Some people are, some people aren't, but I strive to be that lifelong learner. Even after I was diagnosed, I knew that day I wasn't going to stop learning about what was happening to me, what could happen to me, what other things are out there. I wasn't going to stop. And I know that you're that way. And that makes me really pleased that you are. You don't give up, and you're passionate about the things that you like and are interested in. And I'm thrilled with that. Just don't shut out other people's opinions, because in the process of you developing your own knowledge and abilities, turning people away isn't really going to help you get your point across to others. You, in whatever way you want to share it with the world or with other people, keeping those doors open, it's going to help you with that. This part of the video, I just wanted to address, where I'm at right now. I wanted to talk about your birth, my feelings from the moment you were born, and moving forward, watching you grow from a little girl into a young lady. And, you are not a woman in my eyes yet, but you are a young lady who is well on her way to being a very strong woman someday. And I'm very proud of you. And the next time, in this video, I hope to just sort of talk about some things that may happen to you later on, that I just want to give you, talk to you a little bit about my feelings, without trying to be in that moment, because I don't want to take away from anything that you might experience individually. I just want you to hear from me. And I love you. I just want you to know that. I say it, and you might hear it, and it means, mom's words, I love you, and it just kind of comes and goes. But I want you to know my love isn't just a love. It's that deep, deep, unconditional love. That means there's nothing attached to it, no strings. It's just, it is here, and it could never be broken up or leave. Nothing could ever happen to it. From the moment you were born, I signed a contract with my heart that love began, and my contract continues. Okay, all set. Hi, honey. It's Mom. As you can see, I've changed a little bit up top since the last time, the first part of this video. And when I look back on it, I'm missing my hair already. But I know that there are some things that, you're going through right now and seeing my hair gone. But I know you wouldn't admit to it. I guess for me, it's just kind of a natural thing, because I've lost my hair before in my life, and I've been on chemotherapy before, and so for me, it doesn't seem like such a big deal, and I'm more prepared for it this time than I certainly was at 12 years old, which, was, like I've told you before, was a very rough time. It's a hard time in your life to begin with, and you don't see that now, but you will someday, and, to lose your hair and, to make sure that, your friends don't know. I had one close friend that I knew about things that she went through, and she knew about things that I went through. And she was the only one that knew that I was wearing a wig. And maybe some kids suspected that I was, but I thought I got away with it pretty well. So as long as psychologically, it helped me quite a bit. Putting this tape together for you, I really just wanted to give you a sense of where my mind is in how I've raised you and how I've, things that I've done over years, good or bad. And I know someday when you become an adult, you will understand that, we make mistakes, we fall down, we get up, and we dust ourselves off, and we move forward as best as we can. And that's all I've ever tried to do. And there are times in my life when you remind me of me in many ways, because I am hard on myself, and I've been hard on myself and worried about what other people think. And it's natural to feel that way at your age. But then again, it's been part of my personality and part of who I am. Just some of my insecurities, we call them insecurities, but, I've worried about what people thought and things like that. I'm not super old, and I don't have, lots and lots of years and years of wisdom to tell you, but I do have 41 years now that I can say that I know that in my heart, those things don't matter as much anymore. And I know that at some point in your life, you'll get to that place too, where you just don't, it's not that you don't care. It's just that little things like that just don't matter. Whatever you decide to do in life, as far as whether you get married, have children, I know you are very opinionated. Sometimes I think it's very funny. I laugh about it inside. And there are other times when I take you seriously, because I know that you're such a planner and you follow through with a lot of things that you say. But I also know that you're 13 years old, and that a lot of the things that you say, they may not materialize the way you think it's going to. So just keep that in mind. If you plan to get married someday, I hope you are absolutely in love with the person that you can call your friend, the person that you can, talk with and go to if you have problems. I know in my heart at this point in time in my life that there are certain things that we do in life and we don't know exactly how it's going to be. But there's one thing there are some things that I have learned over the years, and that is these important little things. And you just don't know until you go through it. And, you may find yourself in a place where you're not in a place where you want to be. But it's never too late. It's never, ever too late to change your mind or to change your decision about things. The only thing that makes it difficult, and that I've learned over the years, is that once you have a family, once you have children, and children become a part of your life, it does complicate things a little bit more, so that if you make a decision to not either be with the person that you think is your soulmate for the rest of your life, or you think that, maybe you could have made a better decision at some point along the way, it's a little bit more difficult to just go back and fix. You can't really do that. You can't go back and try to change things as easily when you have children, because, we want certain things in life to be stable and to be just the same, your children. I've been very careful about not upsetting your life too much, and, whether it be changing schools, there was a time when I really did in my heart, I wanted to move closer to my own sister, to be, but I don't want you to feel in any way, shape, or form that, if you watch this someday, that you think, maybe you could have done that for your mom and allowed me to be closer to my doctors and things like that. But I want you to know that I made this decision because I care about you and I love you and I want you. But it wasn't just about that. It was about not upsetting your life and making it so difficult that you couldn't stand to not only have a mom with cancer, but to have to meet new friends and go to a new school. All of those adjustments I took into consideration. And that's why, we chose to live where we live, and we made these decisions because I really thought carefully about the things you had said to me, and your 4-page letter to me, I'll never forget. That's just proof of what a planner you are. And when you mean business, you mean business. And you do your homework, you do. And I have to give you credit for that. And I hope you always do your homework. I hope you always, research things, look up things before you make decisions and step into, hot or boiling water, so to speak. There's been many times in my life when I've been very impulsive and I've kind of made quick decisions, and it's just part of growing and figuring out, me thinking that life is going to take me to a certain place because I just was convinced that if I do this, well, it'll just happen. It'll all work out. Sometimes it did work out for me. Sometimes it didn't. And what I like very much and what I'm so proud of you is that you look at things before you just make a decision. You might not right now because of your age, but you definitely have that. That is part of your personality. And it was when you were a little girl. I mean, you didn't just do things quickly. And I'm reassured that you're going to make decisions someday. And then even if they're not the right decisions, they're going to be ones that you've done your homework for. You've looked at before you jumped into, so to speak. I say often that you and your brother are very different. You're very different personalities. I do say that. I say it pretty clear because it's pretty obvious, and it's obvious to a lot of other people other than, your mom and your dad. But I have to say that I've told you this many times. There are things about you that I absolutely love about you. And I love that you are who you are in certain ways, just like I love, how your brother is about his little personality, and things will be interesting over the years to see how that grows and develops. Just like I've gotten to watch you develop in just 13 years, but, it hasn't been very long. But I so look forward to, many more years of watching you grow into and have your personality and your just watch you change and mature. And, maybe and I'm very thrilled and excited to be thinking about being a part of those times. And I want you to know, I tell you this often. I don't know how often you hear me, but I'm there all the time. I had to go over to Walmart and get some new tapes, and Kathy did that with me. And I just wanted to sort of, I watched the end of the last tape, and I think I'm not quite sure exactly what I was saying to you at the moment, but I know that at this point, I just want to say I was talking about decisions that you make later in your life, and how much, no matter what you make for a decision, no matter what you decide to do, I'm going to be there to support you 110%. And it doesn't mean that I won't be there to give you motherly advice. My mother tries to give me advice today. And sometimes I find myself getting caught up in telling her that I already know, I know. But sometimes there's been many times in my life when I walked away, and when I think about it, her advice hasn't been so bad. It's actually been advice that she'd give to me from hard-earned experience. And you can't really argue with any of that, because sometimes our mothers just know best. It might be a overused little saying, but it is just what it is. It's hard to explain. sometimes to people how that happens, but it just does. Sometimes I get advice from her that I don't always want to accept, but it turns out to be good advice. And maybe because she's from the outside looking in on me and has known me since I was born. And you just have to trust that that's how I feel about you. I've known you since you were born. And I know you always say, well, I'm a different person and you don't know every little thing. But you know what? I give you credit because I do know quite a bit. I do know a lot more than you think. And when you give birth to a child and you raise that child, you know a lot, tend to know a lot about them. Do I know every little thought that goes on in your mind? No, I don't. And I'm glad that you're able to have, your opinions and your thoughts that you can keep to yourself or write down, whatever it is, however you like to do. I know you and I are different that way. I'm sort of write my thoughts down on paper, and that's kind of how that propelled me into wanting to, write a book about my life and things like that. Not everybody likes to do that. That's not for everybody. Not everybody likes to put their feelings on paper, and you and I are a little different that way. And I hope someday to be able to have that book for you to be able to read or share with others, or just, I hope to have both of these things. I wanted you to be able to see my face, and whether I'm here 10 years from now or 20 years from now, or whether I'm not, or, God forbid something happens to me, with this illness or whatever. I mean, we don't know what could happen to any of us from day to day, moment to moment. But I know that making this tape for you was important to me, for you to be able to see my face talking to you. Even if you've heard many of these words before, it's still important for me to be able to say them again and have you hear them again and have this as a keepsake that you could play again and again to listen to whenever you so chose to. I've said this, and I've said this in the early part of the tape, that, I'm very, very proud of you. I'm proud of everything that you've done. It just ceases to amaze me what you are capable of doing and what you have shown me that you're able to do. And I so look forward to future years of just watching you be successful and grow. But the most important thing to me at this point, especially where the age that you're at right now, where you're sort of kind of struggling with, am I an adult? No. Am I a child? No, you're not. You're not a little kid anymore. And you do have opinions and you want to voice them and you want to have the opportunity to do that. And sometimes you fight me and you fight Darren and you're fighting the world right now because you feel like your opinions need to be voiced and they're strong. You're a strong-willed girl and you're a very strong personality and in your beliefs, and the idea that you are I'm very proud of. I like the fact that you are a strong old girl. Nobody's really going to persuade you to do anything that you don't want to do, really. And that I know for a fact. I've known this about you since you were 5 years old. I've known this. But I want to go back to, exactly how I felt about you from the moment you were born. I knew that you were a strong person, and that's a very good quality to have. But there are times during your growing up years when I've noticed that sometimes your strong personality and your strong opinions have kind of gotten in the way of you being able to see all that you can around you. And if I could give you one last message, that would be to really open up your eyes, to really look around. Make sure that you're not using your strong opinions to propel you to doing things and making decisions about other people and other things, and being sort of allowing it to create sort of an ignorance and sort of opinions about things that unless like I told you this from day one, and I know this, having been through cancer in my life, having been through hardships in my life, even people who have been through it, they can't always speak to this, but I have to say this is very important to me as a mom, saying to you, unless you walk in somebody else's shoes, do not claim to know how they feel or what they're going through or what they should do or what they should have done, because everybody makes their decisions based on, in the moment, what they are feeling, and they make it based on what is best for them. And not everybody makes good decisions, and I've told you this throughout the tape. I've not made the most perfect decisions in my life that I could have made for myself. and you're not going to. I want you to know that no matter what you decide to do, I will support you. It doesn't mean I'm not going to give you my opinion as a mom on what I think you could do, but I would never ever push that on you in a strong way and lead you to feel so differently than what you feel already about yourself. I want you to try. I really would like to see you make a decision, and I will either support you or I will share my opinion, but it's going to be in a really, really neutral way. If I don't, you're allowed to remind me of that. As you get older, I will give you permission for that. But please be gentle and please be respectful when you do. I wish, looking back, that I had been a little more respectful and a little more gentle on my mother and some of her opinions on things, because I know she meant well in the end, but I didn't always take it that way. It's hard for us to know that when we're growing up, but I know in time you will learn it because you're a smart girl and I've watched you evolve and mature and learn things over time that you didn't get when you were 7 years old, you get now at 13. So my last message to you is I absolutely love you with all of my heart, unconditionally. There are no strings attached. It is just a love that will never, ever decrease, diminish, no matter what happens, no matter what. You could say very hurtful things to me, and I'm going to tell you they hurt me, but it doesn't mean I would ever stop loving you as a person and as my daughter. And I feel very, very lucky to have you as a daughter, and I feel very, very blessed to be able to see you achieve things that you want to achieve, and you go after things, and you talk to me about things, and I just know in my heart that you're going to be successful no matter what you decide to do. And if you fail, if you feel in your heart that you failed, just know that you can get back up again, brush yourself off, and start again. It is not the end of the world. It is not. It is never too late. Sometimes we can't undo things that have happened, but it is never too late to change and fix things. I mean, I've met older people along the way, people in groups 10, 20 years older than me that are just discovering things about their lives and making changes and become extremely happy in a way that they've never been before. And I know, and when you see this happening, you know that life is just a series of learning events, and it continues. It's never ending. And, what you learn today doesn't mean you're not going to change your mind later on and evolve and think differently about things. So just keep that in mind and keep an open mind, please. I love you very much, and I'm very proud of you. And I guess that's really the bottom line. That's pretty much all I have to say at this point. I hope you enjoy watching this videotape. Sometimes you might get a little bored with it, especially if there are things, like I said, you've heard before. But I hope someday it's beneficial to you, and I hope that you can watch it and think, get a good sense of who your mom is. I love you.